to spread in my soul and consume my soul. So the question comes, why was Yazid envious of Imam Hussein? When we are envious of others, it's perhaps because they have a better job, or they have more money or more property or material gains than we do, and thus we're envious of others. Why was Yazid envious of Imam Hussein? Did Imam Hussein have more money than Yazid? No. Yazid had inherited a huge fortune from his father Muayyah and his predecessors. All of the money of the Muslims was in Yazid's pockets. It was at his personal disposal. He was not richer than Imam Hussein. Was it that Imam Hussein had more power and authority? Imam Hussein, yes, he did have a lot of authority, but Yazid, through his resources had more power than Imam Hussein did. So what was he envious of? In order to understand this question, we have to go back in time. Because this issue did not occur spontaneously. Yazid did not wake up one day and say, hey, let me go and kill the grandson of the Prophet today. No. We have to go back in time. In fact, we have to go back many, many years to way before the advent of Islam, the pre-Islamic era. More specifically, we go back to the 5th century. In the 5th century, there was a man by the name of Qusay. Qusay, he had a lot of respect. If you notice, the Arabian Peninsula at the time, it was made up of tribes and clans. And the most prominent tribe at the time was whom? Quraysh. Quraysh was composed of 20 clans, and the approximate number of the Quraysh at the time of the advent of Islam and afterwards was about 30,000 people. But this tribe was very much respected within the Arabs. Why? And how did this happen? Qusay was the chief of this tribe. And the reason why Quraysh was called Quraysh was because Qusay, he gathered his family members and those around him, and he came back and he resettled in Mecca. Because for a time being they were away from Mecca. They came back and they resettled in Mecca, and that's the reason why this tribe was called Quraysh. Qusay, he was very well respected as the chief of the Quraysh tribe. And Quraysh in general was respected amongst the Arabs. Number one, because they were the descendants of Ismail alayhi salam. And we know that Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail, they were the ones who built the Kaaba. And so they were descendants of the Prophet. And number two, they were the custodians of the Kaaba. The Kaaba, even before Islam, held a very honorable and high position in society. Even the mushrikeen, the polytheists, they used to come from different parts of the Arabian Peninsula and elsewhere, and they would come and they would perform their pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Of course, at the time, the Kaaba was filled with idols, and there were very different rituals than the rituals that we see now. The Kaaba before it had idols. These polytheists, they would come and they would bow down to the idols. This was before Islam. Before Islam came and said no more idol worshipping. And so, because of being the descendants of Prophet Ismail alayhi salam, and because they were the custodians of the Kaaba, they were respected. Now Qusay, in the end of the 5th century, before passing away, he asked his son Abdu Manaf to take over responsibility. Qusay passed away, his son Abdu Manaf, he came, he took responsibility of the area and the tribe. He became the chief of the tribe of Quraysh. And Abdu Manaf, he left, he had 4 sons who he left. These 4 sons, and we're going to go into history, so if you can try to keep up, and I'll try to make it as clear as possible, but try to keep up inshallah, and the results will be good. He had 4 sons. Abdu Manaf had 4 sons. Abdu Shams, Nawfal, Hashim, and Muttalib. Hashim, out of these 4 sons, Hashim was the brightest. He was the most courageous. He was the strongest. And as a result, he was the most respected amongst his brothers. Hashim was known for his noble virtues. And this is where Bani Hashim came from. From specifically this son of Abdu Manaf, by the name of Hashim. Hashim was respected between the tribes and within the tribes and even within Quraysh. But Hashim, unfortunately, his 2 brothers, Abdu Shams and Nawfal, they envied him. They envied him. They did not like that their younger brother Hashim, who was younger than them, had more respect and a greater position than they did. He was so virtuous that he was given authority to feed and to water the pilgrims. And this was a very honorable position, because again, the Kaaba was very important, and the pilgrimage in general was essential, was very important. So Hashim, because he was well respected, he was given the honorary title and the responsibility of feeding and watering the pilgrims. Even before Islam, this concept of feeding and serving the pilgrims was highly regarded. And it continues to be in Islam. When we look at the ahadith, we notice that they emphasize that there is a great reward for those who serve the pilgrims. The pilgrims are what? They are the guests of whom? They are the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have gone to the house of Allah. They are the guests of Allah. So when a person serves the pilgrims, he is doing what? He is serving on behalf of whom? He is serving on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the waiter. He is Allah's waiter. When he serves, when he feeds and waters the pilgrims. And thus, it is highly recommended. During the time of the 4th Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, of course the Imams initially they lived in the city of Medina, and many times they performed the pilgrimage. They would go from Medina to Mecca, they would perform the pilgrimage. One year there was a caravan that was passing from a distance. It was passing through Medina, and this caravan was headed towards Mecca. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he decided to go with this caravan and perform the pilgrimage. He got on board. They did not recognize him. He came on board and he told them, listen, when I'm here, it's difficult for me. I don't have anything to bring or provide for me. But if you allow me to join you, in return, I will serve the pilgrims who are going. And so they allowed him. They said, okay, fine. And during the way from Medina to Mecca, Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he would feed the pilgrims. He would take care of their needs, anything that they required. Along the way, a man, he also came and he found that this caravan was going towards Mecca. He came, he approached, he joined the caravan. He noticed that his Imam was standing between the people, serving them food and giving them water and so on and so forth. He came to the leader of the caravan. He told him, what's going on here? Do you not know who this man is? He told him, no. It's just a servant of God. He wanted to come along and we're allowing him and he's serving us. The man told him, this is Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is your Imam. Of course, the man and those around him, they were completely ashamed. They were embarrassed. How could they allow their Imam to serve them? So they came to him and they began to apologize. He told them, don't apologize. I intended to come with a group that does not know me, because when I go to Hajj with a group that knows me, they don't allow me to do anything. They keep me sitting on the side and they want to serve me continuously. But my intention is to serve the pilgrims. I want to work for God. I want to be employed by God by serving His guests. And thus, this position of taking care of the pilgrims was highly revered, and it was given to Hashim. And as a result, his brothers, they envied him. And they challenged him, but they were no match to the charisma and the virtue of their brother Hashim. Abd Shams, he had a son by the name of Umayyah. And this is where Bani Umayyah go back to. Umayyah, after his father Abd Shams's death, he came and he represented his father. He noticed that Hashim, once again he had envied Hashim, and thus he tried to challenge his uncle Hashim. And once again within the Arabs he failed, and as a result the Arabs and the Quraysh in the area, they decided to exile him because he failed to match his uncle when he challenged him. And they exiled him to Syria for 10 years. Umayyah, Hashim, after his death, he had a son by the name of whom? Abdul Muttalib. Who is whom? Abdul Muttalib. Who is he? He is the grandfather of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once again, Abdul Muttalib, he took over his father's responsibilities, Hashim, and he was also very well respected because he was a highly honorable man. He was known for his morals and his akhlaq and his wisdom and his virtue and his generosity. And as a result, he was very well respected within the Arabs. In fact, Abdul Muttalib was known, and his issue was revealed in the Quran in Surah Al-Fil. During the time of Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet, outside forces, they tried to come and to destroy the Kaaba. In Surah Al-Fil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He relates to us this event. When the army of Abraha, they came and they proceeded towards Mecca with their elephants and their huge army. They came and they tried to destroy the Kaaba so that the pilgrims would come towards them instead of going towards the Kaaba. The person who was courageous enough to stand before them was Abdul Muttalib. And thus, he was respected with those around him because he was courageous enough to do so. However, Abdul Muttalib, the time came for him to be envied by whom? By Umayyah's son, by the name of Harb. Harb, he was not happy with this. Abdul Muttalib was respected. His father Hashim was respected. And so on and so forth. While his father Umayyah and his grandfather Abd Shams, they were not respected. They could not challenge their brothers and cousins respectively. However, he still tried to challenge Abdul Muttalib. And this envy, it continued until when? Until in the 6th century, the time in which the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he began his divine message. He went out and he began to call the people, initiating the Islamic message. However, this time, by the time that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, he had announced his prophethood and he had began his message, there was a man by the name of Abu Sufyan, who was the son of whom? You guessed it, Harb. Abu Sufyan was the son of Harb, and Abu Sufyan was one of the greatest enemies of the Prophet and of Islam. He saw this as a threat, that this man who is younger than him, who comes from Bani Hashim, he has come. It's not enough that they were the custodians of the Kaaba and they took care of the pilgrims and they were respected, but now he's coming and he's announcing that the religion and the ideology that we have is all corrupt, and I'm bringing you an entire new faith. They felt as if this was a threat. This was a threat to their interests.